Hey everybody, welcome back to another Hot Girl Reads. It's been a minute and I literally I'm still trying to figure out when I should go live at work, but basically we got a few minutes left until it's closed. I finished all of my tasks, so I'm just gonna go on live and read it with you guys, okay? So if you remember, I never finished Law 30, which is unlike me. I typically finish all of the ones that I do the same day, but I didn't finish it that day. So we're gonna go ahead and finish Law 30. So if you guys can go ahead and pull out your books by Mr. Robert Greene. Of course, we want to give him his money and his bread too. So go ahead and get your book, 48 Laws of Power, and open up to page 246. Okay, guys? So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to really pick up where I left off. So let's get into it. Observance of the Law 1. The Japanese tea ceremony called shanryu, or hot water for tea, has origins in ancient times, but it reached its peak of refinement in the 16th century under the most renowned practitioner, Sen no Rikyu. Although not from a noble family, Rikyu rose to great power, becoming the preferred tea master of the Emperor Hideyoshi and an important advisor on aesthetic and even political matters. For Rikyu, the secret of success consisted in appearing natural, concealing the effort behind one's work. One day, Rikyu and his son went to an acquaintance's house for a tea ceremony. On the way in, the son remarked that the lovely antique-looking gate from the host's house gave it an evocatively, lonely appearance. I don't think so, replied his father. Where was I at? It looks as though it had been brought from some mountain temple a long way off, and as if the labor required to import it must have cost a lot of money. If the owner of the house had put this much effort into one gate, it would show in his tea ceremony. And indeed, Sen no Rikyu had to leave the ceremony early, unable to endure the affectation and effort inadvertently revealed. On another evening, while having tea at a friend's house, Rikyu saw his host go outside, hold up a lantern in the darkness, cut a lemon off the tree, and bring it in. This charmed Rikyu. The host needed a relish for the dish he was serving and had spontaneously gone outside to get one. But when the man offered a lemon with some Osaka rice cake, Rikyu realized that he had planned the cutting of the lemon all along. To go with this expensive delicacy, this gesture no longer seemed spontaneous. It was a way for the host to prove his cleverness. He had accidentally revealed how hard he was trying. Having seen enough, Rikyu politely declined the cake, excused himself, and left. Emperor Hideyoshi once planned to visit Rikyu for a tea ceremony. On the night before he was to come, snow began to fall. Thinking quickly, Rikyu laid round cushions that fit exactly on each of the stepping stones that led through the garden. Oops, don't tell nobody. That led through the garden to his house. Just before dawn, he rose. He saw that it had stopped snowing and carefully removed the cushions. When Hideyoshi arrived, he marveled at the simple beauty of the sight, the perfectly rounded stepping stones unencumbered by snow, and noticed how it called no attention to the manner in which Rikyu had accomplished it, but only to the polite gesture itself. After Sen no Rikyu died, his ideas had a profound influence on the practice of the tea ceremony. The Tokugawa shogun Yorinobu, son of the great emperor Ieyasu, guys, I'm sorry if I'm butchering these names, was a student of Rikyu's teaching. In his garden, he had a stone lantern made by a famous master, and Lord Sakai Tadakatsu asked if he could come by one day to see it. Yorinobu replied that he would be honored and commanded his gardeners to put everything in order for his visit. These gardeners, unfamiliar with the precepts of Shanoyu, thought the stone lantern mishappen. Its windows were being too small for the present taste. They had a local workman enlarge the windows. A few days before Lord Saki's visit, Yorinobu toured the garden. When he saw the altered windows, he exploded with rage, ready to impale on his sword the fool who had ruined the lantern, upsetting its natural grace and destroying the whole purpose of Lord Saki's visit. When Yorinobu calmed down, however, he remembered that he had originally bought two of the lanterns, and that the second was in his garden on the island of Kishu. At a great expense, he hired a whaleboat and the finest rowers he could find, ordering them to bring the lantern to him within 2 days, a difficult feat at best. But the sailors rowed day and night, and with the luck of good wind, they arrived just in time. To Yorinobu's delight, the stone lantern was more magnificent than the first, for it had stood untouched for 20 years in the bamboo thicket, acquiring a brilliant antique appearance and a delicate covering of moss. When Lord Sakai arrived later that same day, he was awed by the lantern, which was more magnificent than he had imagined, so graceful and at one with the elements. Fortunately, he had no idea what time and effort it had cost Yorinobu to create this sublime effect. Okay, guys, so let's go ahead and interpret what the freak I just read in that whole story, because I was low-key lost. So, interpretation. To Sen no Rikyu, the sudden appearance of something naturally, almost accidentally graceful was the height of beauty. This beauty came without warning and seemed effortless. Nature created such things by its own laws and processes, but men had to create their effects through labor and contrivance. And when they showed the effort of producing the great effect, and the effect was spoiled. The gate came from too far away. The cutting of the lemon looked contrived. You will often have to use tricks and ingenuity to create your effects. The cushions in the snow, the men rowing all night, but your audience must never suspect the work thinking that has gone into them. Nature does not reveal its tricks, and what imitates nature by appearing effortless approximates nature's power. Now, guys, I really just realized that I read that whole story already to you guys. And I see the second observance of the law right here, and I already read that too. So I don't know if I read the interpretation. I think I did read the interpretation to you guys. Let me know. So I think where I was at last time, I was reading the red little stories for you. So let's go ahead and read the little red blurbs, and let's get into it. So the first one is Kanu Tanyu, Master Artist. Date Masamune once sat. Date Masamune once sent for Tanyu to decorate a pair of gold screens 7 feet high. The artist said he thought black and white sketches would suit them, and went home again after considering them carefully. The next morning he came early and made a large quantity of ink, into which he dipped the horseshoe. He had brought y'all saw that? He had brought with him, and then proceeded to make impressions of this all over the screens. Then with a large brush he drew a number of lines across them. Meanwhile, Masamune had come in to watch his work, and at this he could contain his irritation no longer, and muttering, "What a beastly mess!" he strode away to his own apartments. The retainers told Tanyu, and he was in a very bad temper indeed. "He shouldn't look on while I am at work then," replied the painter. "He should wait till it's finished." Then he took up a smaller brush and dashed in the touches here and there, and as he did so did the prince of the horseshoe. turned into crabs while the big broad strokes became rushes. He then turned to the other screen and splashed drops of ink all over it. And when he had added a few brushstrokes here or there, they became a flight of swallows over willow trees. When Mansumune saw the finished work, he was so overjoyed by the artist's skills as he had previously been annoyed by the apparent mess he was making of the screens. By Shanuyu, The Japanese Tea Ceremony, A.L. Sadler, 1962. Okay, The Wrestling Master. There was once a wrestling master who was versed in his 360 feints and holds. He took a special liking to one of his pupils, to whom he taught 359 of them over a period of time. Somehow he never got around to the last trick. As months went by, the young man became so proficient in the art that he bested everyone who dared to face him in the ring. He was so proud of his prowess that one day he boasted before the Sultan that he could readily whip his master, were it not of the respect of his age and gratitude for his tutelage. The Sultan became incensed at this reverence and ordered an immediate match with the royal court in attendance. At the gong, the youth barged forward with a lusty yell, only to be confronted with the unfamiliar 360th feint. The meester seized his former pupil, lifted him high above his head, and flung him crashing to the ground. The Sultan in assembly let out a loud cheer. When the Sultan asked the master how he was able to overcome such a strong opponent, the master confessed that he had reserved a secret technique for himself, for such a contingency. Then he related the lamentation of a master of archery who taught everything he knew. "No one has learned archery from me," the poor fellow complained, "who has not tried to use me as a butt in the end." A story of Sadi, as told in The Craft of Power by R.G.H. Sue in 1979. Okay, this is the last little red story, okay? Keep the extent of your abilities unknown. The wise man does not allow his knowledge and abilities to be sounded to the bottom. If he desires to be honored by all, he allows you to know them, but not to comprehend them. No one must know the extent of his abilities, lest he be disappointed. No one ever has an opportunity of fathoming him entirely, for guesses and doubts about the extent of his talents arouse more veneration than accurate knowledge of them, be they ever so great. Balthazar Gracian, my man, 1601 to 1658. Okay, guys, so a line of poetry will take us hours maybe, yet if it does not seem a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has been naught. By Adam's Curse, William Butler Yeats, 1865 to 1939. So let's go ahead and get to the keys of power of this chapter and what I just read. Did you guys see that again? Okay. Humanity's first notions of power came from primitive encounters with nature. The flash of lightning in the sky, funny. A sudden flood, in the speed and ferocity of a wild animal. These forces required no thinking, no planning. They awed us by their sudden appearance, their gracefulness, and their power over life and death. And this remains the kind of power we have always wanted to imitate. Through science and technology, we have recreated the speed and sublime power of nature. But something is missing. Our machines are noisy and jerky. They reveal their effort. Even the very best creations of technology cannot root our admiration for things that move easily and effortlessly. The power of children to bend us to their will comes from a kind of seductive charm that we feel in their presence of a creature less reflective and more graceful than we are. We cannot return to such a state, but if we can create the appearance of this kind of ease, we elicit in others the kind of primitive awe that nature has always evoked in humankind. One of the first European writers to expound on this principle came from the most unnatural of environments, the Renaissance court. In the Book of the Courtier, published in 1528, Baldassare Castiglione describes the highly elaborate and codified manners of the perfect court citizen, and yet Castiglione explains the courtier must execute these gestures with what he calls sprezzatura, the capacity to make the difficult seem easy. He urges the courtier to practice in all things a certain nonchalance which conceals all artistry and makes whatever one says or does seem uncontrived and effortless. We all admire the achievement of some unusual feat, but if it is accomplished naturally and gracefully, our admiration increases tenfold. Whereas to labor at what one is doing and to make bones over it shows an extreme lack of grace and causes everything, whatever it's worth, to be discounted. Much of the idea of sprezzatura came from the world of art. All of the great Renaissance artists carefully kept their works under wraps. Only the finished masterpiece could be shown to the public. Michelangelo forbade even popes to view his work in process. A Renaissance artist was always careful to keep his studios shut to patrons and public alike, not out of fear of imitation, but because to see the making of the works would mar the magic of their effect and their studied atmosphere of ease and natural beauty. The Renaissance painter Vasari, also the first great art critic, ridiculed the work of Paolo Uccello, who was obsessed with the laws of perspective. The effort Uccello spent on improving the appearance of the perspective was too obvious in his work. It made his paintings ugly and labored, overwhelmed by the effort of their effects. We have the same response when we watch performers who put too much into their art. Seeing them trying so hard breaks the illusion. It makes us it also makes us uncomfortable. Calm, graceful performers, on the other hand, set us at ease, creating the illusion that they are not acting but being natural in themselves, even when everything they are doing involves labor and practice. The idea of sprezzatura is relevant to all forms of power, for power depends on vitality, on appearances, and the illusions you create. Your public actions are like artworks. They must have visual appeal, must create anticipation. You become just one more mortal among others. What is understandable is not awe inspiring. We tell ourselves we could do as well as if we had the money or the time. Avoid the temptation of showing how clever you are. It is far more clever to conceal the mechanisms of your cleverness. Talleyrand's application of this concept to his daily life greatly enhanced the aura of power that surrounded him. He never liked to work too hard, so he made others do the work for him. The spying, the research, the detailed analysis. With all his labor at his disposal, he himself never seemed to strain. When his spies revealed that a certain event was about to take place, he would talk in social conversation as if he sensed an imminence. The result was that people thought he was clairvoyant. His short, pithy statements and witticism always seemed to summarize the situation perfectly, but they were based on much research and thought. To those in government, including Napoleon himself, Talleyrand gave the impression of immense power, an effect entirely dependent on the apparent ease with which he had accomplished his feats. There is another reason for concealing your shortcuts and tricks. When you let this information out, you give people the idea that they can use it against you. You lose advantages of keeping silent. We tend to want the world to know what we have done. We want our vanity gratified by having our hard work and our cleverness applauded. And we may even want sympathy for the hours it had taken to reach our point of artistry. Learn to control this propensity to blab, for it is an effect it for its effect is often the opposite of what you expected. Remember, The more mystery surrounds your actions, the more awesome your power seems. You appear to be the only one who can do what you do. The appearance of having, sorry, where am I? The appearance of having an exclusive gift is immensely powerful. Finally, because you achieve your accomplishments with grace and ease, people believe that you could always do more if you tried harder. They elicits not only admiration but a touch of fear. Your powers are untapped, no one can fathom their limits. That's so inspirational. Okay, so guys, close your eyes. Imagine this, unless you're driving or handling heavy machinery. The racehorse, right? The racehorse. From up close, we would see the strain, the effort to control the horse, the labored, painful breathing. But the distance where we sit and watch, it is all gracefulness. Flying through the air, keep others at a distance, and they will only see the ease with which you move. Authority, okay? For whatever action nonchalance accompanies, no matter how trivial it is, it not only reveals the skills of the person doing it, but also very often causes it to be considered far greater than it really is. This is because it makes the onlookers believe that a man who performs well with so much facility must possess even a greater skill than he does. By Baldassare Castiglione, 1478 to 1529. Okay, so this is going to be the reversal to this law. The secrecy with which you surround your actions must seem lighthearted in spirit. A zeal to conceal your work creates an unpleasant, almost paranoid impression. You are taking the game too seriously. Houdini was careful to make concealment of his tricks seem a game. All part of the show. Never show your work until it's finished. But if you put too much effort into keeping it under wraps, you will be like the painter Pontormo, who spent the last years of his life hiding the frescoes from the public eye and only succeeded in driving himself mad. Always keep your sense of humor about yourself. There are also times when revealing the inner workings of your projects can prove worthwhile. It all depends on your audience tastes and on the times in which you operate. P.T. Barnum recognized that his public wanted to feel involved in his shows, and that understanding his tricks delighted them, partly perhaps because implicitly debunking people who kept their sources of power hidden from the masses appealed to America's democratic spirit. The public also appreciated the showman's humor and honesty. Barnum took this to the extreme by publicizing his own humbuggery in his popular autobiography written when his career was at its height. As long as the partial disclosure of tricks and techniques is carefully planned rather than the result of an uncontrollable need to blab, it is the ultimate in cleverness. It gives the audience the illusion of being superior and involved, even while much of what you do remains concealed from them. Okay, guys, so that was the end of Law 30. Let me know your thoughts below. And yeah, I'm going to try to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to the Hot Girl Reads. We're pretty much almost done. We only have like 17 more chapters to go. I know that sounds like a lot, but we did 31. So we're over that. And yeah, so if you're interested and you want to be a part of the Hot Girl Reads book club, I guess, I don't know if that's what it's going to be called, then please subscribe and get your book by Mr. Robert Greene so we could support the author. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.